Good afternoon and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday, everybody. This is Dan McCormick. I'm the ambassador for the Augmentino Company, the Greatest Salesman podcast, episode number 22, if you can believe it. Every single week, we have the opportunity to dive in to that unbelievable philosophy for life and living that Augmentino left us in his priceless traditions and all those amazing writings and books that he wrote. And I'm just so blessed that it was the book that was put in my hand when I was a 19-year-old young man with no self-esteem, no self-worth, no net worth, and it has been the guiding force for my thoughts each and every morning when I rise. I get to say scroll number 2 in my mind. I will greet this day with love in my heart. And I have been trying to get a hold of this man right here. He didn't return my calls for a few weekends, okay? But through their son, Kenny Brady, we got together, and I am so thrilled every week to welcome my guests. And today, you guys are sitting in that fabulous chair that I call the greatest salespeople in the world. Good afternoon and welcome to the podcast. How are you guys?
Thank you. We're so excited to be here. We feel really honored.
Thanks for having us, Dan.
Well, DeAnne, I know that we were fortunate to go out and discuss life and business and family about 6 weeks ago, maybe, and have some dinner. But we really spent hours on end on the history of the industry, what you guys have built, and your company, LuLaRoe. You've gone out really and been, I would say, the greatest salespeople, the greatest story ever told for clothing. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I love to do at the start of every show, before I get into anything about your story, about your journey, is I always love to say, what do you think the 3 things are that shape your life or each and every day of your life?
Go ahead, sweetheart.
So for me, thank you for asking. And I've had a few minutes to think about that statement or that question. It's raising a large family. And if you look at our bio, you know that Mark and I have a very large family. And Thanksgiving was last week, and we had an amazing time getting together with 24 of our 26 grandchildren. And majority of our kids were there. And it was a huge blessing. So much fun chaos that it was crazy. But in having a large family, you've got to make sure that you're doing the things that you can to be an example, especially to your children, to people out there. And I was raised in a family. I'm the 10th child of 11. I have 7 sisters and 3 brothers. And kind of at the tail end, well, I was the tail end. Me and my twin sister were born number 10 and 11. And I watched my mom and dad, who were entrepreneurs themselves, and grandparents that were entrepreneurs. But my parents were caterers. They loved to do catering and came to California to find their American dream in the 50s, and a scary time. They were trying to figure out how do they make their business grow? How do we keep 11 children intact and keep them all doing the right things? But I tend to go back on the things that my mother would often say. And I refer to my mom because mom was really the face. Dad was running the business. Mom was also in sales and everything else, but she was there, making sure all of our job charts were being done. And we got things that we needed to get done. She would often say things like, service is the price I pay for the space I occupy. Service was a really, really big thing in our family. And it was like, well, don't wait to be asked. Go ask what you can do to take care of the situation or be an asset. And I believe it was great in dating and meeting other families, meeting friends. When I was in high school, I learned how to be a much more aggressive or cordial person by learning that confidence of service is the price I pay for the space I occupy. Get up, go do something. The second thing I would say would be about, we say it over and over, get up, get dressed, and show up. And I learned very early on as a young mother with 2 little children that getting up and getting dressed was really, really important. And I could get so much more done if I got up with purpose and I showed up, and I especially put my makeup on. And I'll never forget when my kids would say to me, it was Kenny actually at the time, I think he was like 2 or 3 or 4, and Amelia was 2 years younger than him. And he saw me putting my lipstick on in the mirror. And I obviously wasn't getting myself put together until, right before my husband at the time was to walk in the door. I hung out in lounge clothes, which isn't bad, but for me, they weren't such great lounge clothes. So early on, I put in my lipstick on one day, had a friend that said, hey, listen, I get up, I get dressed, I put my makeup on right away so that I'm first, and then I can get my kids all ready. And Kenny goes running into Amelia, I hear in the background, hurry, Amy, get your shoes on, we're going somewhere. And I leaned out of the bathroom into the family room where the kids were, and I said, Kenny, we're not going anywhere. What do you mean? Where are we going? Well, Mom, you put your makeup on. You put your lipstick on. We must be going somewhere. And I thought, oh, what kind of a mother am I if I'm not getting up and doing the things that I need to do? Honestly, even right now during COVID, we especially just, if we don't have anything to do, we don't really get up and get going. And I really do think it sets a precedence of things that maybe we tend to be a little bit more laid back and not so efficient. And then we find ourselves feeling frustrated that we're not getting things accomplished. And so that kind of goes along with schedules. I think schedules are really important. And to quote my daughter, Amelia, who talks about time management and everything, having her 5 children, she says there is security in a schedule. And when you have a schedule, it helps you and your kids to know what's going on, what's next, and how to make it happen. So those are my 3.
I love it. That's great wisdom, right? Get up, show up, and get dressed and show up. I love it. And you got to have a plan. So, Mark, did you want to add anything on how you see it, or do you pretty much harmonize with that?
Well, you know what? You only let us talk about 3, and I'm seeing 10 of them, here in these scrolls that I could share all 10 of those, right? It's interesting that DeAnne and I did not coordinate because I wanted to give her the freedom to be herself and, not have like a script as we came into this. But this concept of service, I think, to me has been something that has always guided my belief system is that you need to bring value wherever you are. And I loved when DeAnne taught me the concept of service is the price I pay for the space I occupy. And that just meaning wherever you are, you should be looking for that opportunity to serve. And I think, so that would be definitely one of the guiding principles. And another one that's very important to me is basically the work ethic, knowing that and owning your results, taking responsibility, stepping into the problems, leaning into opportunities, and then accepting the result, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but knowing that you put it all on the field, you gave it everything you had, and that the result that you got is the best result you could have gotten at the time. And oftentimes, it's not the best result, but the lesson learned from it allows you to put forth more effort or a different effort or show up in a different way in the next opportunity. And I often think of I love entrepreneurism. I'm driven by entrepreneurs and the concept of being an entrepreneur. And so, that ties back into this idea of being responsible. You cannot be a successful entrepreneur unless you accept responsibility for everything. If, whatever, this is my business. Whatever happens in my business is my responsibility. And I prefer the word responsibility to the word fault, because fault has such negative connotations. And because something didn't go exactly the way you planned it, doesn't mean it's negative. It just means it's different. And you're responsible for that outcome. And if you want the outcome to change, then change the behaviors around it. And so that's what I would add to what DeAnne had to say.
I love it. Every week I get a chance to just take notes and kind of think about what my guests come up with. And all of those are just incredibly valuable. I love your optimism. I love what Stephen Covey taught me about the word responsibility. And he looked at it, ability to respond, right? Individually, wow. We have the ability to respond. We can be positive, we can be negative. I love your optimism. And I think about Og as well. You think about, here's a guy that was an alcoholic, committing suicide. Life was so dreary. A wife that didn't want to see him, kid didn't want to see him. And he starts off with that famous first scroll, today I begin a new life. So every day he's thinking about, how do I begin anew, correcting the errors of my ways, move forward. And it's a powerful thing to think about. So when we were at dinner, I did not know this, Mark. You and I met, I think it was 1987.
Probably about then, yep.
About 87. And you told me that the first time you read the book was in the mid 70s, way before I even got it.
Yeah, I was 19 years old. I read the book in 1976. And in fact, I can tell you it was probably October of 1976. I was preparing to serve a mission for our church, and somebody gave the book to me and said, this might be of use to you, and it was. I read it, I enjoyed it, I benefited from it, and then life moved on, just like some of your other old friends that you haven't stayed in touch with. And when we went to dinner and you invited us to revisit it, and it was in the back of my mind. I've been aware of it for a long time and just hadn't got it back to it on the list. And rereading it was like being reacquainted with an old friend.
Well, and you have to know something about Mark. Mark is a reader, and in the very beginning of LuLaRoe even, he would read literally a book a week, and he's the kind that he retains it, which is amazing. So, for him to remember it back then, that's just him.
So I read because I don't have original thought, so I have to get them from all these smart people somewhere.
No.
All my good thoughts come from somebody else, I swear. It's all wisdom.
Totally. So DeAnne, you just recently reread it as well. We'll come back to your thoughts on it, because for me, because I was just this young, moldable 19-year-old, I had nothing. I finished college in 2 weeks, right? So most people call that dropping out, but me, I was finished. and here this thing shows up in my life, and so it becomes kind of my mantra for living. And it's been with me all these years. And as the ambassador to the company, I get to remind everybody, hey, it's still here. Let's read it again together. Let's see what we can learn. So DeAnne, what was your thoughts? What did it feel like when you reread the book?
Well, okay. So Mark and I were involved in another company, and so we did read it again. I would say, I read it for the first time about, I would say 30 years ago. Okay. How can I be that old? I'm not that old. So yeah, just a little wee bit of time. Rereading it was emotional for me. I mean, really emotional, because you don't know, we have the saying, you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. And then when you look back and you go, wow, I've been doing all of those things subconsciously because of reading it so long ago. And I really do believe that if you'll just take time, in fact, I love that we can download things on Audibles and I can listen to it, and I can hear it this way. And then I pick up my book and I can read it this way and mark it, as you can see. And I love it. I love that it is a quick read, but man, it's deep, well thought through. And I love it. Seriously, Mark read it real quickly. I mean, obviously, because it is a short read. And instead for me, it took me about 3 days, because I went back and then I rewound and then I read it, listened to it again. And yeah.
Love it. Any particular scroll that stands out for you, DeAnne?
Oh gosh, for me, I think the one that really hit me was that I will persist till I succeed. Mm-hmm. I love that, scroll 3. Yeah. And I love it because I think that it takes tenacity, and well, I know it does. It takes tenacity and dedication. And through the years, we always think in terms of, well, someday I will be, but I might. And when in 10 years from now, when my life is this and that, I'm going to be up here in the success status. And, it doesn't happen unless you really become persistent and you decide and you think about the goals that you're writing and you make it actionable. And I love that, like you said, today is a new life. And every day we have to get up, we get dressed, and we show up. And we have to assume we're already there. That's what I think.
It's a favorite amongst a lot of people in the world of direct selling. I will persist. And the word that kind of was taught to me by one of our guests was the word, excuse me, until. Until. It doesn't say anything other than until. You're going to keep going and persisting until. And Mark, I wonder when you reread it, if anything stood out for you.
Well, again, that's a hard question because there was so much of it. But I really enjoyed the second scroll where it talks about having love in your heart. And we live in a society today where there's so much divisiveness and there's so much pressure to choose. Are you a this or a that? Are you, where are you on the spectrum? And if you're not like me, then you're like them. And there's all this divisiveness. And there's this opportunity to just look at each other and say, we have so much more in common than we have that separates us. And to build on that, to find what unites us and what we believe together, and focus on that, and not pay so much attention to what divides us. But of course, DeAnne pointed out to me, she said, "Oh, I know your favorite scroll." And she said, "It's number 7. I will laugh at the world because I think you have to have a sense of humor. You have to understand, guys, this is all silliness.
So wound up and everything and all upset, and then there's that. And he just lightens the whole emotion, and oh my gosh, I love him for it.
That's great.
And on a given day, he has a head full of jokes. But then if you ask him to tell a joke, he can't do it.
No, it's probably more inappropriate. So you have to be really careful what you ask for.
Okay, so let's go back to that, DeAnne, because I loved when we were at dinner. We talked about your story. You were sharing with me having a car full of clothes. You got to go out and sell. You got kids. You got rent to pay. You got things to pay for in life. One of the things I appreciate about the founders of direct selling companies is when they start out in the field. What was that like for you when you started, and how did this whole thing just snowball to be one of the fastest growing companies in history?
For me, it was like a need. I was raising 7 children. Then when Mark and I got together and got married, he had 4. And then we found 3 more teenagers in Romania and brought them into the family. So that makes 14. And and bringing those kids here, the teenagers here, I thought, well, I'll just bring them here for the summer. We can take them to Disneyland. And this was 15 years ago. And I knew I couldn't send them back. I mean, they were raised in an orphanage, and their life was so drastically different than ours. And if you've been to a country like that, you would understand. And I got them here and I went, Mark, we can't send them back. And so in order to be legal, we were able to switch them, because you want to do all the proper steps. And so we did. We switched their visa over to a student visa. In that comes the high expense of tuition for 3 young adults and their room and board. And it was out of state because that's where we got their visas, and it was awesome. With that became that desire, that need, that what is it or why am I doing it? And we often quote Simon Sinek. He says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Yeah. For me, I wanted to keep them here. And of course, I wanted to make money. And I knew, and I say over and over, that money does make the world go round. Money does make it better. Not greedy kind of money, but money that blesses others, that can help you to give more in a season, right? Like Mark said, right now where there's a lot of stress in the air. And so I was doing dress parties, but I usually did those during Christmas and 3 weeks before Easter. So 3 weeks before Easter, Christmas, and 3 weeks before Easter. And this is a perfect timing. I cut out a skirt for my daughter. She posted it on Instagram, and oh my gosh, it started to really snowball. Now, when I say snowball, I don't mean, it's just automatically successful. No. Oh my goodness. I kind of convinced one of my nieces to host a skirt party. And so I made up 4 or 5 skirts. And then I put a sign up attached to each skirt that said, if you like this skirt, put your name and phone number, and it's this much money, and I'll go buy fabric. I will get them sewn for you. Well, within about a half an hour of that party, I think we had 65 orders. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be so great at it. And then it started to dawn on me that, oh my goodness, I was the one that was going to have to cut out and measure these skirts. And I went, oh, no. And I was really like stressed about it. And I realized, oh, wait, I can ask somebody else who really knows how to do this to cut and sew these. And we used the term cut, sew, bag, and tag. Now, the tags were a business card that I ran to the local printer, stamped a hole in it, got myself a tag gun for $6 on the internet, and I was in business. And I had no idea what I was doing. And of course, none of them had a hem in the skirt because my sewer at the time was going to charge me an extra $5 for that. And I was like, oh, no. We're just going to sell them without a skirt, without a hem. And honestly, where there's a will, there's a way. And when you are ready and you are determined, you're going to do whatever it takes. Remember that I will persist until I succeed. And I thought, I'm going to talk everybody into realizing that it being a raw hem meant that if it frayed a little bit, you could just cut it off with a fresh new pair of scissors. I even invited people to just go get a pair of scissors, brand new pair of scissors. They're 99 cents at the 99-cent store. And people love that. I gave them permission to just enjoy it. Yeah. And I will tell you, in 5.5 months, I sold 20,000 maxi skirts with no hem.
Wow.
And now we definitely are much better at that.
You have the hems now.
Yeah, we got the hems. We're good with that. And proper fabric that doesn't stretch out and all that dilemma. I think there's some listeners on here that can testify that, oh boy, and what's funny to me is that people have actually kept that skirt. I mean, that horrible, not so well made, measured skirt. You know why? Because it brought them happiness. It brought them joy. And I'll never forget one quick thing. One lady shows up and she's there and she goes, oh my gosh, do you remember me? And she's smiling. And I said, yes. And she rolls out a handful of skirts onto the table. DeAnne, I'm here to buy 9 more skirts. And I'm thinking, are these for gifts or what? And she goes, oh no, they're for me. And I said, really? How awesome is that? And she said, I just realized every time I put on my skirt, I feel happier. I must have a happier countenance about me because when I'm out and about at the grocery store, people give me compliments. I'm pumping the gas in the car. And she says, I just feel more confident and it makes me look good. I went, well, all right, then we'll just add you right up.
Amazing. And then it just, Mark, you when we were at dinner, you just started sharing with me about, there's just no way to prepare a company for the kind of growth that you guys experienced. Talk about, the decisions you're making every day to fulfill orders, to, build a new building and get more employees. It just had to be an enormous, I don't know how you slept.
Well, we didn't, not much.
Tell me where we started.
Well, yeah, it started in our house, and it started as DeAnne started to sell. She asked me to start helping with the production side, and so we started getting more skirts made ahead of time, and then they were taken over to the garage, and then we moved the furniture out of a couple of the bedrooms. They took over the bedrooms, and then we moved the furniture against the walls in the family room and the living room, and it took that over. And before we actually got our first warehouse, we lived in a home where our bedroom and the kitchen were the only 2 rooms that weren't taken over by this business.
We needed to eat and sleep. I think that was kind of important.
And we moved into a small warehouse space. Lasted us, the warehouse space actually lasted us for a little while, just over a year. But from there, we moved from 6,000 feet into 36,000 feet. From the 36,000, less than a year later, in about 9 months, we moved into another 120,000 that we kept along with the 36,000. And then we bought a building, and then we rented another building, and we ended up with over 1 million square feet of warehouse space. Meanwhile, all of the systems to support that, you can't even begin to think. We were on QuickBooks when we started, and we were outgrowing QuickBooks. And of course, we could see that we were going to outgrow QuickBooks. And so we started plug for QuickBooks, plug for NetSuite. We started converting to a NetSuite system, but QuickBooks, you go down to the store and you buy a disk and you put it on your computer, and now you got QuickBooks, right? Converting to a NetSuite system takes some time. And during that conversion process, we grew so quickly that it was taking us a day and a half to download a day's worth of data into QuickBooks. Wow. And so we were flying completely blind. We couldn't even identify what our daily sales were or where we were so we were basically watching cash flow in the bank and making decisions just kind of based on instinct and, with very few indicators. But it all worked. And to that, I come back to that love of entrepreneurism. Entrepreneurs are people who show up and go, what's the problem? We're going to solve it. There's nobody else that you can ask. There's nobody else that has this answer for you. You're going to have to take the knowledge that you have and the team around you and come together and come up with a solution. And guess what? Sometimes it's wrong. And sometimes, and you just go, well, that didn't work. We bought software systems that never got implemented. We bought them, paid for them. And before they were stood up, they were obsolete. And we were like, okay. And, but again, as an entrepreneur, you understand that sunk costs are irrelevant to your progress. And what I mean by that, this is a great example. We got in a spot where our production could no longer keep up with us. And so we knew that we had to build our own factory. And then something came up that forced us to move very, very quickly. We lost our supplier almost instantly, and we had to get a factory set up. We looked at a building on Tuesday, and we produced clothing in that building the following Monday. And so we basically got the keys and just started throwing sewing machines in there and setting it up. And then as we went forward, we refined it and we got it to where we started with like 40 machines, and eventually we had 85 sewing machines in there. We were doing great. And then we moved to the next level of our business, and we needed another supplier. We moved outside to another supplier, and I said, well, we're going to shut that factory down. And my production manager at the time said, Mark, we've got so much money invested in it. How can we shut it down? And I said, that's like saying I broke my leg and I bought crutches and I've got so much money invested in my crutches. How could I ever quit using my crutches? No, that served us then, and it no longer serves us. Therefore, don't be attached to it. Forget about what it is and look about where we're going and what we have to do to get to where we're going.
I'm reminded, because you said, DeAnne, that he likes reading. I'm reminded of one of my favorite business books of all time listening to your story. And that is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight from Nike. And he woke up for 18 years in a row wondering if they were going to be able to pay the bills. And when those Nike shoes started coming out, I remember buying them in 1977, and they fall apart and the swoosh would fall off. And I mean, they had so many production problems. I mean, like you, they were growing so fast. And I mean, I've been in the world of direct selling I'm in my 38th year. And we've been so blessed. But you know what? Out of the 38, I'll bet 30 plus have been really, really hard. Nothing easy. I mean, companies that I was with that I thought were just like the answer to every prayer you could ever have. And it was hard. It was hard, hard, hard. And I just loved it when Phil Knight said, 18 years, I woke up every morning wondering if we were going to go broke. Unbelievable that you were able to buy all those systems, software, sewing machines, and say, we're not going to use them. We're going to go to the next deal. It's just amazing. And so let's move forward, DeAnne. What do you see going forward, 2021 and beyond, for your company, your people, your leadership, and your optimism for the world?
Well, I'm so excited about how things are happening. Let's talk about positivity, okay? Because yes, there's a lot of other issues, but I'm saying the positive is that women and men can sell online. They can rely on social media. We are social retailers, meaning that we're socially are drawn to each other. All of us are. And it's been really hard for everybody to be in their confined spaces and during this crazy time. But one thing for sure is that you can really rely on learning about people, seeing people if you are on your social media platforms. And there are quite a few. And if people will just keep going to the various places that they are used to going and open up their minds and understand that you're not alone, that you are with a huge culture, a huge community of people, humans relying on other humans, and especially women. We need to know that, what, my kids fell apart at school, or those of you that are homeschooling, they're falling apart because mom's falling apart. And it's okay to have a bad day and melt down and go and do what you need to do. And I've seen funny memes of women locking themselves in the kitchen cupboard or pantry to eat their favorite, ice cream or something, just for a moment of quiet and peace, because the house is full of kids and nobody's ever leaving, And you know what? At the same time, we are in a society, especially for Mark and I, we're excited about everything. Like I said, for us, business is doing, I feel, really awesome, really great, because people can buy on the internet. They can see it how it is. They hold it up and they offer it to whoever is the fastest person to claim it. It creates this urgency, this excitement. It does create a little bit of frustration if you can't get what you really like. But you know what? Be patient. Something else that somebody's going to hold up, I'll bet you'll fall in love with as much. And I will tell you, I'm so grateful. We had a comment on driving home from Thanksgiving, and a comment that social retail was up 21%, higher than it's ever been.
Yep.
And I sat there and I thought to myself, how awesome is that? What a huge blessing it is that people can be able to shop. But with LuLaRoe, there's a relationship. There's a person rather than just a flat picture. I remember one time I ordered some lipstick and it was a new system and you no longer could go into the store because of the pandemic. And I had to order it and I put in the wrong address. And so obviously it went to somebody else. Hopefully they enjoyed it better than me. But there was not a human for me to talk to say, literally 3 seconds ago, I pushed complete order and they could no longer. Oh, I'm so sorry. We don't do that. And so I was out that lipstick. And I'm okay with it. But I thought to myself, I don't want our company to be like that. We care. We want to be there for people. We want to be a voice. We want to be a face. We want to be, I do videos to people that are succeeding and I want them to see me. I make it to them. I could do it just a copy and paste, but then it wouldn't be personalized to them. And if I had any advice for anybody, for LuLaRoe especially, it's about creating a stronger relationship and creating that culture that we started in the very, very beginning. And that was, how are we going to help other women to feel confident, to feel comfortable, and to love themselves no matter what they choose to wear that day. And it's okay to wear the size that they don't want to wear as long as they feel confident in it, and for Mark, I'll talk to you about business-wise. He does that way better than I do.
I love it. I love all of it because, like I told you at dinner, you're an inspiration to so many people. Starting your company and just how it changed your life and how it springboarded you to change other lives. And I love how you said the word schedule. And I early on, and I looked up the scroll where Og says, I will greet this day, or I will live this day as if it is my last. And he says this, Mark, he says, I will avoid with fury the killers of time. And I think some people choose to be negative people And some people choose to be optimism. I look for the good in everybody. And I look for the opportunity to say hi to everybody. Laird Hamilton, the great surfer, his wife said, I want to be first every day to say hello when I see somebody.
I love that.
First to shake someone's hand. I want to be first. So I was so cool that you mentioned that thing about scheduling, because to avoid with fury the killers of time. Mark, give us some thoughts in closing here, maybe about how you feel about the future, your business, et cetera.
Again, Dan, I wanted to be an optimist, but I didn't think it would work out. So a great entrepreneur is a pessimistic optimist or an optimistic pessimist. You have to look for all the problems and acknowledge all the problems, but you have to do it with an optimism that you're going to solve them. And so, as we look forward to the future, I'm just excited about what we have created at LuLaRoe, and I know that. Every entrepreneur is proud of what they've created because it comes from their soul. It comes from their heart and soul. But when we started this company very early on, I just read Good to Great and had a conversation with our team. What could we be great at? We're not a great fashion company. We're a really good fashion company, and we make really good clothing. But we're not a 100-year-old fashion house, and we're not. And I'm probably going to get kicked under the table for saying these things, but we're a good solid, but there's so much competition in that arena. How do we become great as a fashion company? But what we can be great at is to become a small business incubator. And that was what we identified 7 years ago as we talked about what is our focus. And our focus is on training people to become entrepreneurs. Our mission is to help people become entrepreneurs and enjoy the freedom that comes from responsibility. From owning your life increases your, and you know what? Again, I'm a stickler. I'm a stickler for language. We don't help people create freedom. We help them create opportunities and greater choice. I can't give you any more freedom, and I can't take your freedom away from you. Your freedom is inside you. Freedom is inherent. It's a God-given gift to us. But what we can do is increase our opportunities, increase our choices. And that's what being an entrepreneur does. As you become responsible, as you serve others, money is the repository of the service you have provided. That is all it is. When I was younger, there was a bumper sticker that said, something about money is keeping score, and it had kind of a negative connotation, but it's not a negative connotation. It's keeping score of the amount of service you have provided. Do you want to know if you're good to your fellow man? Then look around and see. You can check your bank account. Now that's a controversial statement, but if you are serving others, the universe is fair to you. And if you'll serve others without worrying about what you get, and just worry about what do they need and what do I have that I can share, what skill set do I have, what knowledge do I have, what empathy do I have, what can I just be a friend? When you look at others and you recognize their humanity and you allow your humanity to connect with theirs, you will have what you need in this life. And so I'm super optimistic because that's our goal, is to teach people that concept. And the bottom line is we have no competition, because if you're going to teach them that concept, then we're partners. We're working together to get that taught. And if you're not trying to teach them that, then you're not really my competition. If you're just selling clothes, you're just selling clothes. We're selling clothes with a vision of helping people become entrepreneurs, take personal responsibility, learn to serve others, become part of a community that is inclusive, that is a complete meritocracy, that loves and supports those who show up and produce. And that's who we are. That's what we're doing. for that, I have ultimate optimism because the world needs, people are looking, where is that place where my effort will be rewarded, where people will love and accept me for who I am, and where I can grow personally. And entrepreneurism is a place where it's the greatest self-improvement course in the world.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited.
Wow. I'm excited to hear your guys' energy. And I got to tell you, you mentioned the word freedom, and it was just the other night. I was going through my direct selling, network marketing, multi-level market, every book in my library. I have hundreds of them back here. And there was a book written about the Amway Corporation years ago called The Uncommon Freedom, speaking to those things that you were talking about. And it was just so, they faced some of the most difficult challenges in the history that any company could face, with governments wanting to shut them down. And because of them, I believe we're here as an industry today because of what they stood for in the state of Michigan. And I just love when you mention the freedom, because I get to choose, as Og teaches me every day. He says this, I love your comment a minute ago. He says this, Hafid is one of the characters at the beginning of the book. For all of our friends that are watching today and you have not read this book, you need to add this to your life and get more optimism in your life, perhaps. But he says this because I just love people. I love showing up and being a friend. And he says, I've always counted your friendship as my greatest asset. And I think that I can say that about your son, Kenny. I can say that about other relatives you have that I know. I can say that about just being around I showed up in a hotel where you were doing your convention in January. The optimism, the enthusiasm, the speakers, everything that's going on. So, DeAnne, what would you say to a lot of your fans that are following, that are watching, your reps? I love the fact that you use the word social retailing. That is a new buzzword. It's happening in a big, big way. But what would you say in closing to our audience today?
I would just say, let's really work on gratitude, and let's work on loving one another more and assuming innocence. I mean, we use those terms a lot in LuLaRoe. And a lot of times we can avoid anger or misunderstanding if we'll just first take a minute and assume innocence. But I really feel so much gratitude for this business and for what it has brought to our family and to Mark and I. We often say we're guests in our own business because we don't feel like, people used to say in the very beginning, oh my gosh, you must feel so lucky. I want to go, yes, we do. We feel so lucky. But we also know that with it came a lot of work, like you said, and we continue to do that lovingly and excited, full of excitement and wanting to get up and get going every day. We're not retiring. We have no intention of retiring. We're like on fire. We're like, what can we do next? Wow, what is the next thing that we can get to? The next step? Who else can we help to become, fulfilling their dreams and all that stuff? So, I mean, honestly, I just hope that whoever's listening knows that Mark and I care so deeply, and we're here, we're all in, and we're going to continue to be all in.
I just have had the greatest past couple weeks studying that word gratitude. And we have this mutual friend named Dieter Uchtdorf who said we should have gratitude in our circumstances, not just for our blessings, in our circumstances. And I just would hope and pray everybody can take that to heart today, because I know Og would want that. If Og was here today and he could share a message about where he came from. I was fortunate to meet him just one time, but what a remarkable individual. He had a philosophy for living. He had a philosophy for writing. And I'm just honored that you guys would make the time to be with me today on the show, share your story, some insights to the journey, the ups, the downs, the struggles, and just gratitude in our circumstances. And I thank you both for being here. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks so much for having us, Dan. It's been a pleasure.
Such an honor.
Everybody, it's episode number 22. It's in the books of the Greatest Salesman podcast. My name is Dan McCormick, the ambassador to the Og Mandino Company. We look forward to being back with you every Wednesday at 2:00. And you can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us any of our podcast sites that you'll pick us up on. And we'll look forward to having more unbelievable people every single week. I'm Dan McCormick signing off. Have the greatest day of your life, and bye for now.